guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. Sorry for the very long pause in my channel cause I had exams after exams. Anyways, let me just close this first. I just noticed I still have this up. Anyways, today, as you can see here, we have 4 builds. So we are gonna go in depth and talk about what these builds are, whose these builds belong to, and then we are just gonna compare them in spec to spec. Okay, so as you can see here, I've labeled some of them I haven't labeled because we're going to look through them together. For CPUs, as you can see, I've labeled every single Intel one except for the Ryzen 5 5600 cause we're going to look into that since that is like the newest one we have among all this list. Okay, firstly, this 4 of these builds are provided by my friends. They sent it to me, so I'm gonna look through it and just grade it out of 10, okay? So firstly, as we can see here, for the first one, we have an i5 10th gen. It's a desktop CPU, 2.9 GHz. It does a turbo of 4.3 GHz, 6 core 12 threads, and the TDP is 65 watts. Which, it's good, but it's 40 nanometer process compared to the Ryzen 5 we have here. So that's one of the downsides. Anyways, now let's pull up the Ryzen 5. Okay, the Ryzen 5 5600X. And down here, we have the Ryzen 5 5600X. And we're just going to scroll down here. Okay, perfect. So now let's compare. As we can already see, like I already said, this is a 14 nanometer process, while on AMD side of things, the Ryzen 5 5600X is using 7 nanometer FinFET technology, which is obviously better and less heat will be produced. Anyways, now we are gonna look at the TDP for this compared to this. This is a 65 watt, which is already decent because 65 watt is actually very little power compared to some of the bigger ones. Like, for example, we have below the Intel Xeon series here at 95 watts TDP. Anyways, on AMD side of things, as we can see, it is also 65 watts, which is really not that bad. So yeah, that's fine. But now let's take a look at clock speed. On here we have 2.9 GHz base clock, which is already beaten by the 3.7 base clock here for 3.7 GHz here. But base clock may not always be the most of things. We must also look at our max boost clock. As we can see here, we have a 4.6 GHz boost on the Intel i5 10400 compared to the Ryzen 5 5600X at 4.6. So yes, in this case, I would obviously prefer the Ryzen 5 5600X. That is just one of the comparisons, but now let's get back to the Intel i5 and we'll compare finish first. Though anyways, this would be good enough for gaming. Definitely it's an i5. It may not be the best, it may not run 8K, it may not run 4K games at 60 FPS. But that is not really the most important thing currently. If you're doing like gaming, Minecraft, LOL, this kind of things, they are amazing. And I'm not meant to insult, I'm saying League of Legends. But anyways, for CPU, I would give it, I do not know about you guys, I would give it a 7 out of 10. Which is actually decent because a lot of people also do be using an i5. But anyways, now we are going to rate our RAM. We do not know how much the speed of it are. We do not know the speed of the RAM or anything, but when I checked the official Intel's website, the max is 2666, which is fine, but you cannot go higher. As we can see here again, on Ryzen side of things, we can go up to 3200 MHz. So yes, for the RAM choice, 8 gigs, I would say it's enough for games. But if you want to go further, you would get 16 gigs, so I would give this around 6 out of 10. Now, let's move on to the GPU. This is what strikes me the hardest. A GT 730. Let's pull up the specs of a GT 730. Okay, now we are gonna go to AMD. I just say AMD for an NVIDIA card. Never mind, I cannot find NVIDIA's official website. We just have to go to a Gigabit website and pull up a 730. Because we also do not know the exact model. We are trying to give it the best spec, if I'm not wrong, is the GDDR5 version compared to the GDDR4. This should be better. So yeah, we'll take the specs here. This is a 1 gig of RAM card, GDDR5, and 64 gig megabyte interface. Now, that I would say it's the VRAM is definitely not enough in today's standards. The clock speed is decent compared to the rest, which I've put one of the clock speeds here. Base clock 1168. So yeah, and we have here PCIe Express to Gen 2 X8 bus slot, which I would have greatly preferred an X16 over PCIe Gen 3, but considering the age of this GPU and it just being dropped support by NVIDIA's newest drivers, which is what dropped Kepler, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, this should be based off the Kepler architecture. So yes, overall this is what strikes me the most, and I cannot, and when I mean I cannot, I really cannot give this more than a 5. So I will be kind and give it a 5 overall. If y'all disagree with my opinions here, y'all can obviously leave a comment and just like tell me on how this is better than what I give it. I mean, let's relook at our choices currently. We have Intel i5, and I'm gonna give that actually 7.5, okay, because it's really not that bad, firstly. And for the RAM, obviously you can give it probably nothing more than a 7. So yeah, we'll leave it this way, and we'll do some estimation. Let's see. Overall, this build, because of the GPU pulling it down that much, I cannot give it that high of a score. I would give this around 6.5 out of 10. This is a very tight range, but yeah. Anyways, let's move on. We have an Intel Xeon here, base and turbo, they are both here. And this I can definitely not give more than the i5 that we have already just compared. So we are just gonna give this a score straight away because I've really thought it. 395 watts TDP is decent. 12 threads is the exact same as the top, and the clock speed is lower. I mean, you're gonna tell me no, that you still have to compare nanometer process. I already did. The i5 is running off 14 nanometer process, while the Intel Xeon is running off 32 nanometer. So yeah, we can obviously tell the difference. We are gonna give this a 6 out of 10. This is not meant to offend anybody. I'm just gonna say it first, cause in case any of you feel offended or anything. But yeah, now we have 16 gigs of RAM. Wow. No, that wasn't meant to be sarcastic, sorry. But DDR3 versus DDR4, we cannot really give it that much more, but the maximum is 1888 on this CPU, I think. So we're gonna take it as 1333. Not really that wise of a choice, but due to the uncertainties, we're gonna give it 1333. Anyways, but due to the RAM being twice, I would still maintain a 7 for this one. Okay, now down to the GPU, and due to the rarity of graphics cards right now, I have to give this card a high score. And I'm not even kidding. I have to give it at least an 8. So yeah, we have to give it an 8 out of 10. Cause the RAM is 8 gigs, VRAM sorry, is 8 gigs, that's obviously enough. 16 gigs of RAM definitely enough. And the Xeon, that's the only down point of this. He could have upgraded it easily, and that's for the second person. And now we're on the third person with the Ryzen 5. Obviously, we have already checked. This beats the two existing people that we just got here. And wait, yeah, sorry, we have to give an overall score first. We're gonna give this an overall score for number 2. Number 2, I think I can easily go with a 7 out of 10. Actually, for this case, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10 because it actually is a bit better. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10. Only the CPU is pulling it down. So now let's move on to the third person. Ryzen 5 5600X. Very good 6 cores 12 threads, but it's up to 4.6 GHz, beats all the rest, and it's 7 nanometer FinFET process. And if I'm speaking a bit fast, I'm very sorry, but when I'm talking about that, I get kind of excited. So yeah, let's get straight into it. DDR4 type RAM, sure, up to 3200 MHz, better than the previous two that we just compared, and it's out of the box PCIe Gen 4 if you have a compatible motherboard. So we are definitely going to give this a high score, and it's also unlocked for overclocking. We didn't mention this. I know that this one is probably not overclockable. It's not an Intel K variant. If it had the K here, then it would have been much better, but it's not a K variant. For Xeons, I do not know whether they can overclock, so that's another uncertainty. So yeah, since this it's known to overclock and there is a Ryzen master utility for it, which is only available on Windows systems here, not definitely not Red Hat Linux, but yeah, Windows systems. So I'm gonna already give the CPU, and I cannot give it a 9 because the 9 is reserved for high performance. So I'm gonna give it an 8.5 cause I do not want to go overboard giving the CPU too much. RAM I cannot give too much. I mean, obviously better than the previous two, so I'm gonna give it a 8 out of 10 cause it seems fitting. Anyways, now we are down to the 3060 Ti for the rarity and for the performance of this. The price to performance absolutely crushes it if you can get the MSRP. We are gonna have to give this a 9 out of 10, and this is exactly what we reserve for, and definitely not at 9 out of 100. So yeah. Now overall rating for this build, I would give it a 8.5 out of 10 because it is really a decent build. If you are new to tech, this is the build you want to get. This is probably around the range of, let's say, 2005 currently due to the 3060. The 3060 could have deserved a 10, I mean the 60 Ti, but the 10 is reserved for high level 3080s and 3080 Ti's, and obviously the 3090 itself. So yeah. Now, we're done to the last one, and this is a i5 3GHz 6 core one. This one, I've actually no clue what the specs are because Apple doesn't make it known. So all of this were PC users, if you kind of already tell. This user here uses a 21.5 inch 2019 Retina 4K iMac. Yeah, a mouthful. But yeah, 6 cores, i5 3GHz. We can't compare much, but 3GHz base clock is good. So we can compare it with the existing base clocks, and it's obviously higher than the i5 10th gen 10400 and the Intel Xeon, but it does not beat the Ryzen 5 5600. All their core counts are currently the same, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So we are just gonna leave it like this at around 7.5 again. Yeah, 7.5 out of 10. Because if I give any much higher, it wouldn't be fair. Anyways, we have the DDR4 RAM 6 gigs. This is the same as the previous one, so we are going to give it 8 out of 10. Oh yeah, and this one we do know the speed. The speed is 2666. So yeah. Then for the Radeon Pro 560X, we are going to give it a 7.5 out of 10 compared to the previous one, which was the RX 5700. Yeah, RX 5700 8 gig. Cause this is the 4 gig model and it's not much better and tapped in 54. Let's just give this a 7 cause I don't think it deserves that much better. So yeah. Do not, this is not meant to insult anyone. So yeah. Okay, so now overall this build I can easily give it, let's say, I'm gonna give it a 7.5 off the top of my head cause it seems suited. So now we have here all the listings for everything. We have here everything. So now let me walk through y'all once again, not fully, but let's summarize what we have found out here. Okay, overall data analytics, we can tell that more people like Intel. As you can tell, it's 3 to 1. I mean, yeah, obviously interviewing 4 people and getting the statistics from that is definitely not how things are meant to work. You're meant to obviously like interview more people, but today we can only get 4. So yeah, from here we can tell that 3 users Intel and there's only 1 Ryzen user, and even though that doesn't show the current market, which should be 50-50, we can tell that currently people are still using Intel mostly because they are not upgrading that soon. Now let's move on. As we can see here, besides from the 3rd user once again, all the rest are still using decently old graphics card, which aren't very old, but for some years, for example the GT 730, but the Radeon RX series cards here, or the Radeon Pro series cards, which I forgot to mention that this was a Pro 560X, which was like, if I'm not wrong, a Mac only card. So yeah, it's here by the way if you can't tell. Yeah, it's here. So yeah, that is one of the differences between the Radeon cards here. One is for gaming, one is for workstation. But yeah, so we can't really grade it that fairly since all the GPUs here are different, but overall we can tell that most people use 16 gigs of RAM. This tree use 16 gigs of RAM, and most people use DDR4, including here. While this guy still uses DDR3. So yeah, as you can tell, times are changing. We can tell people are mostly upgrading. So yeah. Anyways, these are all of the uses for today. If y'all disagree with any of the marks I gave it, for example here, or any of the markings, like you think I give too high, you give too low, just comment it in the comment section below. I will review it, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked the video. See you next time. Bye.